You're with Late Lunch on LMFM Radio. After the break, stay with us because Larry Staudt is in the house, former lecturer at DKIT, and he has a lovely wee book out called That's Why I'm Here. Why are we here? Stay with us to find out. My next guest is probably best known in the Northeast as the man, every time I pass it I think of him anyway, as the man who put in place that big generating windmill in DKIT that does so much for the college many years after he's left. He's a member of St. Peter's Male Voice Choir. He's a wonderful musician. He's an author as well. And he's back with me today. And the string and the bow we're dealing with is his writing, because he's a new book out called That's Why I'm Here, Thoughts on the Purpose and Meaning of Life. Larry Staudt, you're very welcome back to the show.
Hi, Jerry.
Thank you very much for joining me. This, may I say, is a really thought-provoking book. And it's a question. It is a question. What is the purpose? What is the meaning of this life? Let me ask you first, and to put the cards on the table, you are a member of the Baha'i faith.
Yes.
Did that influence, your work on this book?
Well, the Baha'i faith views itself as sort of as one of the religions around, but they're all from the same source. So in a sense, they're all classes in one school. And so then we find that they all say pretty much the same thing. No surprise there, you know. So, but yes, certainly that influenced me. But I was wondering about this question before I was a Baha'i as well.
Yes. And as you say, there are many faiths in the world, and really when you examine them more closely, they're really all nearly saying the one thing. There is a greater God or power or creator or whatever. Is there, Larry?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's the argument that I try to develop in the book, that is that needs to be intellectually satisfying. That sounds like a lot of words, but we can't have this conflict between faith and reason, And so in order to come up with ideas about purpose, my argument goes something like this: that there are different levels of being in the world. There's the mineral, the vegetable, the animal, the human. And so as humans we see that, and then and each level knows nothing about the level above it. So I give the example of a farmer in the field. The bull chases the farmer out of the field, thinking that this farmer is just another animal. And so, but the farmer actually has the power of life and death over the bull. Bull is ignorant of this. So logically, we should realize that there may be levels above us of which we are ignorant, cannot understand. And so there's a question, right? And then you look at religion, and it says there are levels above us. So these figures with a capital S, these messengers with a capital M that show up every 1,000 years or so and give us some good information, that we make use of. And but then eventually we kind of mess it up. Another messenger. I'm going
to come on to that in a moment. Yeah. But stay on point there for a moment. You believe, and through the book here, you say there is a greater power.
Yeah.
So then, what is our purpose? What is the purpose? You have the different levels there, and I don't think I'm out of line here saying, you said about the bull, we as humans have, the ability, we are the highest level.
We're capable of abstract thought.
Yes.
Which animals are not. Animals are captives of the laws of nature, and we, with our free will, can just do whatever we want. And,
yes.
We are.
And we are, for the good and the bad as well.
Correct.
But what is the purpose of the short span, and they differ for all of us, that we are allotted on the earth?
Yeah.
What's our purpose?
According to me,
yes.
And actually, I respect everybody's right to have their own opinion, and but this is what I've come to the conclusion that we are here to develop spiritually. So what that means is when we pass on, we move into another place that that only we don't bring our bodies with us, right? We take our spirits with us, apparently, according to the near-death experiences and according to religion. And so if that's all we take with us, the theory is that we want to be in tip-top shape spiritually. We want to be as caring as possible. We want to be as honest as possible. We want to have all these attributes like perseverance, all the qualities of the soul that you admire in others. And so if we have these things, then it's like being born into this life as a fully complete person. So in the womb, we're developing physically, and then when the time comes, we come into this life, and hopefully we're 100% physically. Well, in this life, we should be developing spiritually. So when we get to the next life, we're 100% spiritually. And that's confirmed by religious teachings, but there is some kind of logic in it. So that's purpose number one. The only other purpose, according to me, is the second one, which is, while in this life, we should be of service to others. All the opportunities, all the gifts or talents that we have should be used to help others. And that is certainly confirmed, in the teachings of religion. And so if we do that, strangely enough, we help develop these qualities we're supposed to be developing. You can't be generous without somebody to be generous too.
Yes. And yet a lot of people look after themselves. May Feiner, the term here, and really don't do, as much as maybe they could for others as well. So what you're saying is we build up the credits really here to take with us
exactly
to the next place.
Yeah, well, it's credits, but it's also just simply being fully functional spiritually. And if we arrive in the next life handicapped, meaning we're not honest, or we're not as honest as we should be, then, it's unfortunate because apparently we won't get by as well in the next life. And it's an ongoing thing. That's one of the points that I make, is that we should be engaged with this spiritual development every day. Every day. So at the end of the day, we look back and we say, well, that guy gave me too much change when I left the shop and I didn't tell him about it. That was a mistake, and maybe after thinking about it, you might go back the next day and
put it right.
Yeah, exactly. So there's all these challenges spiritually, besides all the other challenges of life,
We'll come back then to where you were going a few moments ago about, the way mankind is the highest intelligence or whatever that we know of, ruling over the rest.
Yes.
By God, we've made a mess of it, Larry.
I know, yeah. The perspective I have had for a long time is that humanity has been through the stages of childhood, infancy, childhood, and now we're in adolescence. And so what are the characteristics of adolescence? We're running around. We're not thinking a whole lot about what we're doing, but we do have the beginnings of sort of rational thought, but we're not very good at it. We're very good at deciding what we believe, but we're not very good at investigating what we believe, having decided what we believe,
Yes.
So it's quite unscientific and it's immature, but I accept that this is a stage that humanity's going through. And so necessarily, since we're in our adolescence, we wreak a certain amount of havoc, and that's what we're doing. But the good news is that maturity will probably only take a few centuries to come to.
Which we hopefully won't know much about and be in that next place, wherever that may be. But there is a real worry. Like when you look at the world today, is it because we're more connected than ever that there seems to be more friction and war and famine and destruction and the threat of nuclear annihilation than ever?
It's frightening stuff, all right. I try to remain positive in the face of these facts.
You do. I hand it to you. You do in the book. You say you're hopeful.
But one of the ways to give people hope in that regard is that if you look at once again sort of the evolution or the growing up of humanity, there was a stage when the zone of peace for a person would be your cave, right? So you had your family there, your extended family, and maybe a guard at the door, but within the cave you had this area of peace. Well, maybe 1,000 years or two after that, there were villages. And so within the village, a much bigger zone, it was peaceful. And then go on a few more 1,000 years, and then you had kingdoms. So a bunch of villages, in a kingdom where it was peaceful. And then finally, the kingdoms united into nations. It was never obvious how to get to the next stage. One of the examples I give is if you were a villager in northern France in the Middle Ages, and somebody said to you, you know what, this area, Gaul, is going to become part of the great nation of France, which extends down to the Mediterranean. You might say, no, it's not, with some authority, Yes. So when I say the next step for the human race is a peaceful world-level society, that's the next zone of peace.
One nation.
Yeah, well, no, not all the nations, but working together. Not competing.
Even within the political and geographical boundaries that exist.
Correct. And so how's that going to happen? Well, most people say, ain't going to happen because the way forward is not obvious. It's not obvious.
So I'm like that guy in the Middle Ages in Gaul, and I'm thinking the same. Larry Staudt is with me on Late Lunch, and we're talking about his beautiful wee book called That's Why I'm Here, and we are here on your Late Lunch on LMFM Radio. Look, I was thinking about another aspect of this book as well. When you look at the evolution of mankind, it went, may I say, just as an analogy to your bull, at snail's pace for millennia. And yet, in the last years, within a century, it could come even way up, last 20 years, Larry, let's say. Look at where it's gone. Is there a vast distance to go even into the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I quote Einstein in the book where he talks about he can only, the slight details we're able to perceive with our frail and feeble mind. And this is Einstein talking. And so here we are, and we can only understand the world as we see it. However, certainly technological progress has been extremely rapid over the last century, let's say, that kind of thing. And I think that's a lot to do with the scientific method, where we think in a structured way about things and put our thoughts out there, our ideas that we've tested, and then that way we can kind of come to some consensus in science about how things work, and that other people think about it and say, okay, but you could change it a little bit this way, and so we're working cooperatively in science, to find truth, to put it that way, and yet we have so far to go. There's so much to be known, like Einstein. We know almost nothing, and if we know nothing, that's a good starting point.
My God, I can only think millennia ahead when there's not a sign of us, and they'll never remember us where we will be at that stage. When you think, look, sure, my little iPhone here beside me, and I mentioned to you only in the last 20 years or so where this thing has taken us, and the connectivity with what we call the online world, the internet, etc., and what we can do. You come back to the nations and the religions. That man Karl Marx said that religion was the opiate of the masses.
Yes, yeah. In the book, I talk about how new science has come up against old religion. And what I mean by that, and it isn't my original idea, I have to say, is that old religion was brought before the scientific method. And so science is not mentioned in the Quran. It's not mentioned in the New Testament. It's not mentioned in the Old Testament. It wasn't around, And so how did people come to understandings? Well, somebody would proclaim something, and then if enough people bought in, it became truth, right? But it wasn't.
Donald Trump.
Yeah, exactly. Truth Social. Come on. But anyway, so that's the way things were. But now we question everything because we're adolescents, right? and that's good. It's good. And so I think that not only are we beginning to use our intellectual powers for scientific thought, which has brought about this technological explosion, but also we're going to do it spiritually, which is a new thing, because in the past we had a priesthood. Well, we were illiterate. We were ignorant completely. Never went to school, vast majority of people. And so the priesthood were educated, and they had this information from the Creator, right? And so they would convey it to us in more or less pure ways. and that was a benefit to us. Now, so many of us are educated and we think about things on our own. But it's a funny time because we decide what we're going to believe, which is good. But we, as I said before, we maybe don't think about it as much as we should. So I had a daughter who declared, she said, I think I'm going to be a Buddhist, And so my reaction was, that's great. That is a good thing. Buddhism is a good thing, Why? And she says, because I think it's peaceful, which is also probably true, But that was the level of her investigation, right? Which, it's just so adolescent, I'm going to believe this, Okay, why? So that's symbolic of, let's say there's room for advancement in terms of thinking as we leave adolescence and go into maturity. So, but anyway, spiritual thinking will be the same way.
Yes.
So, people will propose things, and the other person will say, oh, really? Where did that come from? And you need to have an answer. But the fact is there's truth out there to be known. It's just we haven't really thought too much about religious truth for a long time because there's so much stuff mixed in with it,
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, in summary today, what you're saying to us, and by the way, before I forget, because we finish shortly, the book, That's Why I'm Here, where can they get hold of it?
Yeah, if you just go onto Amazon, just about any Amazon, and look up, just put in my name, Lawrence Staudt, that's Lawrence with a W, and then Staudt, then a few books will come up, including this one here. The other thing is, on YouTube, I'm presently working on a series of presentations, one per chapter of the book, right? And so if you're not a book reader, you can go onto YouTube.
That will be available on YouTube shortly. Yeah. Fantastic. So, and not Amazon UK. You're better avoiding Amazon UK because there's a thing called Brexit happened. You know what I mean? So anyway, I wish you luck on that. But all the other Amazons, That's Why I'm Here, by Lawrence with a W, Staudt. You can get the book there. So in summary, in the last few seconds, be good. Help others, do your best, get the credits in the back pocket before we move on. How does that sound as a summary?
That sounds pretty good. And keep on top of it, you know what I mean? Really work at it, because life isn't something that happens to you. It's something you have to chase,
Lovely words to finish today, Larry. Really lovely to meet you again. Thank you so much. So thought-provoking. Thank you for coming in to me on the show today.
Thanks a lot, Jerry.
Lawrence Staudt there joining us. Wonderful.